Hi, this is MTB214. Thanks for coming by the channel. Thanks to subscribers new and old. I just finished this book this evening. Just want to go over it and how it's been very touching to me. It's called Stranger in the Desert, A Family Story by Jordan Salama. And another book he wrote was Every Day the River Changes. So he's been in New York Times, National Geographic, and elsewhere. I've heard of him first from National Geographic, the magazine, which I read, as well as a lot of books and the scriptures, because I'm a Christian. So it was a short article about with family history that he wrote about. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So I looked into and I got this book. It actually was something I chose as a gift with the word Christmas party. So I was happy to get this. I messaged the author actually on his Instagram channel or page and spoke to him shortly that about family history and different things, and been reading it, and it's very touching, and I feel a deep connection as well. So it's a story of Jordan, that he's doing family history to learn about his ancestors and what they've gone through. He's from New York, lives in New York, but his ancestors had an interesting past, that his grandfather was in Argentina, and his great grandfather, who was the one, his grandfather's great grandfather, ones that sort of catapulted this project to get into family history, was from Syria. And interesting, there he's from Arab Jewish family, which is interesting because in today's world, it's Arabs and Jews are enemies, with Islam and Judaism in the Middle East, but it's more complicated than that, it seems. So in the book, he finds out about he's at his grandparents' house in upstate New York, a little bit above New York City, Manhattan, and he sees in the basement his grandfather's writings, and then he goes and reads through it. His grandfather doesn't know supposedly, but knows, and then confronts him. They talk about it, and they have this added level to their relationship of family history. And Jordan wants to go and learn more about where his roots are from. With his grandfather's help, he plans a trip. He goes to Argentina, and also he's in Bolivia, traveling to see the past, see how things were, see if he can find out about his ancestors more, and the story of the people there. So in a way, for all of us, that life is similar. So your ancestors are from one area, things are pretty similar, there's culture, what have you. So he goes on this journey with his grandfather, reading his grandfather's writings, discussing about it, etc. And his grandfather painted scenes from back in Argentina where he grew up. And he goes, sees those places in person, and learns about how the people are there, that there's different types of that. His grandfather's father was a traveling salesman, and a lot of Jewish men of that time were, that was their job, and they would go to the little town. They'd start off in the big city, and they'd work their way to little and smaller towns around to trade goods of clothing and other items for other things, and then go back to the city, go back home. So they wouldn't see their family for quite some time, because they're traveling salesmen going to make a living for their family. But his grandfather sort of broke that cycle, becoming a doctor, and being in New York. So it's definitely interesting tale. I was very touched by it, because there's similarities that I have with Jordan and I. My family on my mother's side is Jewish ancestry. I'm a Christian, but I definitely love and respect the Jewish ancestry that I have. And my own grandfather had passed this past summer. He would have been 102 this month if he's like, was still alive. If he didn't get COVID in Utah, he'd still be alive, I'm sure. His mind was still sharp, but he was using like wheelchair to get around. And he had his girlfriend after my grandmother passed. So like, that's how we got almost extra 20 years of life, like having companionship. So in this book, it's about like the importance of family and like remembering those who's gone before, their stories, and like, the love and building relationships. Like when Jordan's on his trip, he goes and like, makes more acquaintances, friends with his family that he didn't know, and also like strangers of different places, and saying about like, oh, like, this project he's working on of his family history. It's very like touching story. I definitely would suggest this book. And a other thing that makes it like hit home for me is like being a New Yorker also. He's like, he says about like upstate New York and Queens and Long Island, which I know all about, all that stuff, being a New Yorker too. So it's like, kindred spirits that I feel a connection with the author. I actually had sent him a message on his Instagram page, and he responded to me and like, spoke shortly about it. And like, this book was definitely very heartwarming and touching and a great read. I definitely would suggest others to check this out and like, write down your own family history, do the work. I've started more recently with reading this to put down like more clear and concise about like my grandfather's life that just passed. And as time goes by with him growing up, like my grandmother and my mom and myself and family as a family unit. So I will continue with this, and I want to do putting family history not just for him but for all my like family. It's hard since all of them are gone. Well, all my like direct ancestors are gone, but like aunts and uncles and great aunts and uncles are still around, so I could ask them more. And I spoke to one of my grandfather's friends when he passed, and then a few days ago more to like, different stories to learn about him from different perspective. And I posted something on Facebook, and someone was actually a client of my grandfather's with when he had his own business, and said, oh, like, you need like to find someone else to help it because like he's like retiring. I don't know how many years ago that was, but they spoke well of my grandfather, and like I know, just have good memories of him, that he's a good man, and that working on family history and to do more and connect with my past and like, bring it to the future. And like, it's important for us to remember those who've come before. And if we don't know specific details, just knowing about like, they were in Sicily and like in the 1800s, so you could like, and they were farmers or what have you, so you could look up and read and listen about the history back then to sort of see the connections of those areas and those people with your own family, because they probably had a similar sort of life back then or now or wherever. So definitely good to connect with our past. I highly suggest to check out this book and like, all sort of different books. It's good to learn, and education isn't as much as it should be with schooling and other things. It's always good to learn and like, self teach yourself by reading and learning and sharing what you learn and delving into your family history and like, making connections with others. It's very important. Thank you for watching. Look forward to your comments, like thoughts about this, and that you go and get started. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, comment, like, share the video. Have a great night. Take care.